and it's not without pain, as I have a genuine friendship with Keir Starmer. But my first priority and my first loyalty is to my country, Scotland. And I am not willing to sacrifice Scotland's NHS, our schools, our communities, our towns, cities, villages and islands to a third decade of an SNP government. That's why the distraction needs to end and the leadership in Downing Street has to change.
This is my video update on this Monday afternoon, February the 9th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the resignation of Starmer's chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, who is being thrown under the McBus. That's right, McSweeney is being thrown under the bus. He is being scapegoated for the whole Mandelson scandal, Mandelson-Epstein scandal, and he announced his resignation yesterday. And there are rumors circulating which now claim that Starmer is going to make a big announcement in the next day or two, and he may possibly announce his resignation as Prime Minister of the UK. But there are also reports which came out about an hour or two before I started recording this video, which claim that Starmer has now stated that he does not plan on resigning. So it looks like the strategy, if these reports are true, and Starmer is not going to resign, at least not yet, then the strategy appears to be to blame everything on McSweeney. Perhaps they feel that the resignation of Starmer's chief of staff, one of the most powerful people in the UK political establishment, a person who is credited with making Starmer, or helping Starmer to become the Prime Minister of the UK. This may be enough to buy Starmer some more time. Perhaps a couple more weeks, perhaps a couple of more months. Maybe they feel that this could buy Starmer another year or two by scapegoating McSweeney. McSweeney is not happy about being thrown under the bus. He agreed to resign. It was either resign or be fired, I guess. But you can tell in his statement that he is not going to take the full responsibility for the Mandelson fiasco. Alexander pointed this out to me, that in his statement, McSweeney makes it appear as if he ultimately did not make the decision to appoint Mandelson as ambassador of the UK to the United States, but he was simply advised on the appointment, which leaves the question, who sought your advice, McSweeney? Because isn't the person who sought your advice the person who is ultimately to blame for the appointment of Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, knowing everything about Mandelson and Epstein? And I would assume that person who sought McSweeney's advice on the matter was none other than the most boring man in politics, 008, Keir Starmer. Here's what McSweeney said. The decision to appoint Peter Mandelson was wrong. He has damaged our party, our country, and trust in politics itself. When asked, I advised the Prime Minister to make the appointment, and I take full responsibility for that advice. This is why having Alexander and his legal mind, his legal genius is so helpful for me in my analysis of things, because when you go through that statement very carefully, you can see that McSweeney is not accepting responsibility for Mandelson. He takes responsibility for giving advice on Mandelson, but not for appointing Mandelson, because who appoints the ambassador of the UK to the United States? Who makes the ultimate decision? Well, that would have to be the Prime Minister, because being ambassador of the UK to the United States is without a doubt one of the most important positions in the Foreign Service. So they feel that scapegoating McSweeney might possibly save 008, Keir Starmer. I don't think so. I believe that Keir Starmer is toast. Stick a fork in him. He is done. The Daily Mail has the title Starmer's Downfall. Now Starmer's comms chief quits as grim-faced cabinet march into teetering PM's bunker. Quite a title from the Daily Mail. So his communications chief, I take it, has resigned as well. His government is crumbling. Bloomberg says Starmer's UK premiership teeters on brink as key aide quits. A lot of teetering going on. Teeters, tatters. Starmer's government is in teeters. Is in teeters, I tell you. A lot of teetering. Oh boy. 10 years, 7 prime ministers. That's the UK. 10 years, 7 freaking prime ministers. And the one PM has been worse than the other, than the previous and the next. They're all bad. And the person that's going to eventually replace Starmer is going to be just as bad, if not worse. So we will wait and see the fate of a decent man, as much of the UK media called him. He's a decent man, 008 Keir Starmer. We await to see his fate. So the FSB in Russia, they released some more information on the attempted assassination of General Alexeyev, and they claim, according to the assassins that they caught, and their statements, they claim that behind the attempted assassination is, surprise, surprise, the Ukraine SBU, and that the SBU, they were going to pay the assassin 30,000 euros to complete the operation. And the FSB also claims that helping the Ukraine SBU was none other than, and this is quite a claim, none other than Poland intel services, that they helped the SBU in recruiting this man and in the operation to assassinate the Russian general who was part of the negotiating team in Abu Dhabi. This has also been revealed. He was not just the number 2 in command to the chief negotiator in the talks in Abu Dhabi for Russia, but on various occasions he was actually took part in the negotiations, which means that if these claims are true from the FSB, that Ukraine, the SBU, the intel services of Ukraine, along with Poland intel services, tried to kill one of the participants in the peace negotiations. Now, behind the SBU, according to a Washington Post article and a New York Times article published two years ago, maybe 3 years ago, behind the SBU, they claimed was the CIA. They wrote an article a couple of years ago detailing how the CIA was involved in rebuilding, reconstituting the intel services of Ukraine, including the SBU, including finding Budanov and putting him in place to head up the military intelligence. And the CIA was very much involved in working with Ukraine intel agencies and building the Ukraine intel agencies so that they work closely with US intel agencies. So I would guess that if the SBU planned this operation to take out one of the negotiators and Poland was involved, the SBU was involved, according to the Russian FSB. This is what they claim, but I would make the assumption, make the guess, that there must have been some knowledge of what was going on, what was about to happen in US intel agencies. If Poland was indeed involved in this, then you would also assume that UK intel services might have known something about this. Of course, these are just guesses on my part, assumptions and guesses, but I go off of the many articles over the years from the New York Times and the Washington Post, where they talk about Ukraine intel services and their very close connection to the collective West intel services, specifically US intel agencies. So that is the update with the attempted assassination of Alexeyev. The Russian Foreign Intel Agency, they came out with a report, and they claim that by 2030, the collective West and the NGOs of the collective West are going to take another crack at overthrowing the government in Belarus and placing a collective West-friendly puppet regime in Belarus. This is what Russian Foreign Intel claims, and they're putting a timeline on this by 2030. They claim that the NGOs are already working on putting all of this together, and in 2-3 years, when I believe 2030 is the next election cycle in Belarus. When that election cycle happens, they're going to try and repeat and successfully accomplish what happened in 2020 during those elections, but this time they want to successfully regime change the government in Belarus. So that is what Russian Foreign Intel is saying. Many years away, but they're putting out this report. And Lavrov, he gave an interview yesterday where he claims that the negotiations in Alaska were agreed on by Russia, by Russian President Putin, the Alaska formula that the United States presented to Russia. We don't have all the details of what exactly this formula was, but the United States presented it to Russia, and Lavrov claims that Russia accepted this formula as a way to move forward to some sort of a peace deal in Ukraine. But Lavrov stated, once again, something that we know, and that has been stated many times, is that Trump decided to walk away from this Alaska formula, and now Lavrov is saying that the U.S. is completely unprepared to go back to the Alaska formula. There's going to be no return to whatever plan they presented to Russia, for which Russia actually agreed to. And Lavrov was very, very critical of the U.S. in a very diplomatic way, which only Lavrov can successfully pull off. But you could tell that he was very distrusting and very upset with the way the United States is handling the negotiations. And he's also frustrated. You could tell that he's frustrated with the way Russia is going about with these performative negotiations, because, as with Alaska and the Trump administration walking away from what appeared to have been an agreed on plan, the United States is just unable to negotiate with. They're just not a reliable, trustworthy negotiation partner. And that was coming through in Lavrov's statements. He said that the United States is looking to control the world economy. He said that the United States is looking to control the world's energy, and they're doing it in very very nasty ways, according to Lavrov. They're seizing ships, they're kidnapping leaders of countries, they're initiating decapitation strikes, they're sending drones into Valdai. Yeah, Lavrov is not happy with the way the United States is going about a negotiation with Russia. So Lavrov, what did he say? In Anchorage, we accepted the offer from the United States. That is, if we approach it like a man, then they made an offer. We agreed. The problem should be solved, but it was not solved. Lavrov also said, it doesn't matter what they say in Ukraine and Europe. We clearly see the primitive Russophobia of most regimes. In the European Union, with very rare exceptions, the US position was important to us. In practice, new sanctions are being introduced. A war against tankers is being waged, as you know, in the open sea in violation of the convention. Americans have set themselves the task of achieving economic dominance. And then Lavrov went on to say, Americans want to take control of all the routes for providing energy resources, including Europe. They're eyeing the Nord Streams that were blown up 3 years ago. They use a very, very large number of coercive measures that are incompatible with fair competition. We remain open, just like India, China, Indonesia, Brazil, to cooperation with all countries, including the US. Lavrov added, we are in the situation where Americans themselves are creating artificial obstacles. Yeah, he's not happy. He is not happy with everything that is going on. But he is always the diplomat. He is always the professional diplomat in the way he words things and in the way he makes his statements. So Lavrov also clarified for the 1,000th time that Russia is not looking to invade Europe or attack Europe or any NATO member. But he did say that if Russia is attacked by Europe or a NATO member state, then Russia will respond with all of its military might. He also talked about the Europeans' plans to try and start some sort of a conflict by 2028, 29, 30 with Russia, and how the Europeans are not hiding this either. They keep on talking about this date 2-3 years in the future where they're going to start some sort of a conflict with Russia, or Russia is going to start some sort of a conflict with them, and they need to be ready, therefore, in 2-3 years in order to engage in some sort of a war with Russia. So Lavrov also talked about how the collective West is planning and preparing for a conflict 2-3 years in the future. Russia will not be tricked. At least Lavrov is not going to be tricked. And on Epstein, he said that the Epstein case reveals Satanism of Western elites. That's Lavrov and his interview, quite an amazing interview that he gave. A very, very honest, as honest as you can get from the chief diplomat on the state of things. And we have the reports from Reuters, which claim that India has stopped purchasing Russian oil, at least for March, and I believe April. They are not going to be purchasing any Russian oil. This is what Reuters is reporting. At least the top 3 oil refineries in India will not be dealing with Russian oil, and Reuters claims that they don't want to purchase any Russian oil because they don't want to sabotage the trade deal that they have just concluded with the Trump administration. This may be the case that at least for a month or two, at least the big refineries in India are not going to deal with Russian oil, but I would make the guess that come April, May, end of April, beginning of May, June, that India will resume refining Russian oil. I would say this is more of a temporary pause than a permanent stoppage of working with Russia. Anyway, that is what Reuters is reporting. I like it. I like that India is not going to be buying Russian oil. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. So yeah, Lavrov is right. The US is negotiating with Russia, and they talk about peace and rapprochement and good relations, but they're still trying to sabotage Russia's energy industries, energy facilities. They're still arming and funding Project Ukraine. They're still talking about sanctions. And of course, you have the drones towards Putin, and now you have this assassination attempt of the Russian general, though they are not saying the United States was involved. We're talking about the SBU and Poland, but you could hear the anger and frustration with Lavrov. Anyway, that is India, and I think from India we can segue over to China, perhaps. We are getting this news story that China is telling their state banks, well, they're ordering their state banks to slash their US Treasury holdings. In other words, accelerate the de-dollarization process. And of course, the reason for the acceleration in the de-dollarization is because China is anticipating the United States freezing their monies in much the same way, their assets in much the same way that the collective West did to Russia. And so they're going to get a move on getting their stuff out. China is exiting the system starting today. China has issued an order to its state banks to slash US Treasury holdings. They aren't just adjusting their portfolios. It's a strategic de-dollarization of their entire reserves. Here's the reason behind it and what's likely coming next. Beijing saw what the US did to Russia's assets. They know their reserves are hostages. They're aggressively rotating out of paper promises and into hard assets like gold. So Elon Musk, he posted on X that he is no longer looking at setting up a colony on Mars. It is now all about the moon, because giant steps are what you take walking on the moon. And so the plan is that in 10 years, Elon Musk, and I imagine some other billionaire elites will be traveling to the moon, hanging out on the moon. That's the plan. In 10 years, Elon Musk says they can make it to the moon. They can have a colony on the moon. He says that Mars is a bit harder and it's going to take more time. It'll take more than 20 plus years to set up a colony on Mars. So in the meantime, it's all about the moon. Elon Musk posted on X. For those unaware, SpaceX has already shifted focus to building a self-growing city on the moon, as we can potentially achieve that in less than 10 years, whereas Mars would take 20 plus years. The mission of SpaceX remains the same: extend consciousness and life as we know it to these stars. It is only possible to travel to Mars when the planets align every 26 months, whereas we can launch to the moon every 10 days. This means we can iterate much faster to complete a moon city than a Mars city. That said, SpaceX will also strive to build a Mars city and begin doing so in about 5 to 7 years. But the overriding priority is securing the future of civilization, and the moon is faster. Sounds to me like Musk is changing the goalposts there. Perhaps Mars is not going to happen, but we could think about the moon. I wouldn't want to live on the moon. Would you want to live on the moon? Why would you want to live on the moon? No thanks. I wouldn't want to live on Mars. But I imagine there must be some people that would love to get a shot at living in space on the moon or on Mars. Astronauts out there that would jump at the opportunity of living on the moon. I'm thinking astronauts like Katy Perry. I imagine that she would be one of the first astronauts to take Musk up on a moon offer. I imagine Trudeau would probably go with her. I can see Trudeau and Katy Perry living on the moon together. I like living on the moon. Only problem, Katie, is that I can't call Olaf Scholz anymore. I miss him. Anyway, all right, let's do a clown world and we can wrap this video up. Trump posted on Truth Social. Oh, man. Noise pollution. A lot of noise pollution in Cyprus. Trump posted on Truth Social a photo of the time when the European school kids were visiting the principal's office in the White House. And this time it's a photo, but next to Trump, it's a photo of all of them together. But next to Trump is the picture of the United States, but the United States with Canada and Venezuela and Greenland. And he posted this yesterday, trolling the European leaders. But I thought he already posted this. I mean, I know you have pictures of Trump sitting behind his desk with this photo of the United States, this map of the United States with Canada and Greenland and Venezuela. I guess now he's placing the Europeans there as well. I guess that's what makes this notable. I thought he had already posted this as he was trolling the Europeans in the past, but I could be wrong. Anyway, that was posted on his Truth Social. I thought I would mention that. And now we get to perhaps one of the funniest article titles in the history of operations for the UK Telegraph. And they've got many Clown World article titles, but this one takes the cake. From the Telegraph, Epstein sitting next to, I guess that's Noam Chomsky. I think it is Noam Chomsky. And the title says, "One thing we know, Epstein was no Mossad agent." That's the title, yep. And if it's from the Telegraph, then you know it's true. You know it is fact. So anyway, I will leave it there. theduran.locals.com. We're on X and Rumble and Telegram. We are also on Substack, so check us out on Substack. The link is in the description box down below. And also go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch. 26% off all merch on the Duran shop. That link is also in the description box down and below. I will see everyone tomorrow. Take care.